How's it going, everyone? My name's Justin. I'm with the Keeper Home team, and welcome back to our channel, Everything Jax Real Estate. In this video, we're going to be doing our market update report for the Jacksonville Beaches and the Jacksonville Southside area for April of 2024. This market update is going to go over the amount of homes we saw hit the market, the amount of homes we saw go under contract, as well as the amount of homes still on the market, and even looking at what are the sold prices of these homes, as well as how long these homes have been on the market for active solds and pendings. So when we come back, we're gonna go over all of that and much more. So before we get started on this video, don't forget, as always, to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell so you get notified when we post more content like this in the future. Also, don't forget that if you have any questions with anything that we go over in this video, or you want to hop on a one-on-one call with me, or FaceTime, or Zoom call, or again, face-to-face in person, in the description of this video is a link to my calendar as well as my contact information, so you can reach out to me at any time to go over any questions you may have for the market here in Jacksonville, specifically the Beaches and Southside areas. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and check out what the numbers show us. And first thing we're going to see that there's 116 sales pending in April compared to 413 homes that were still for sale at the end of April. This gave us a pend to list ratio, which is when we look at the amount of pendings compared to the amount of overall homes that were available for sale for a given month, of 21.9%. So roughly a little over 1 every 5 homes that hit the market or were on the market in April went under contract in April. This is actually a little bit less than we saw in March, and part of that's going to be because we've seen in the last month or two interest rates begin to rise again. We're seeing not enough economic positive changes for the Fed to reduce their rates, which has caused a lot of lenders to keep their rates high or raise them back to where they were at one point last year, until they start to see the Fed make more strides to reduce their rates. So with those higher rates, we do see some more homes sitting and less contracts because there might necessarily be a little bit less buyers in the market right now. All that to say, though, is that the market is still mildly active. So overall, even though we are seeing higher rates and we are seeing higher prices across the board, we are still seeing a mildly active market, which is good for buyers and good for sellers, because it just means that you will get your house sold, and for a buyer, it means that you will have some options to choose from. Now, when we take a closer look, we will see that the homes in the $400,000 to $600,000 price point made up the majority, most of the contracts for sale. We also saw that in that same price point made up the most homes that were on the market, with 95 listings for their bracket, so to speak. Overall, this is an area where that $400,000 to $600,000 price point is going to be very typical, because we are taking into account areas like Jackson, Neptune, and Atlantic Beach, as well as parts of Kernan, Hodges, and San Pablo that are going to give you neighborhoods like Pablo Creek Reserve, Glen Kernan, Queens Harbor, where you have much higher price points. However, we also still have some other first-time home buyer neighborhoods or more starter home neighborhoods that are a little bit less than that price point, which is what kind of keeps us, as far as homes are concerned, relatively around that median list price, which in this case for the last month was $775. So that kind of explains why, even though the most homes are between $400,000 and $600,000, that median list price is actually higher, because there's more homes higher than there are lower than that range. We also want to look at this graph to see ultimately how many homes are on the market relative to how many homes are under contract. And we put this in a graph form so you can kind of see the discrepancy between the two. And what we can see here is that the properties for sale, when we're looking at that $400,000 to $600,000 to $800,000 price point, far outweigh the amount of homes under contract. What this tells us is the homes under contract, they must be pretty good, otherwise they would still be on the market with the rest of them. And it tells us the ones that are still on the market, that there's now, for buyers, options to choose from to find the best home. And this is that we've seen in the last 6 months or so, and we're still seeing that if you are looking to buy a home, although you will be paying higher rates, you are in a position where you have more options at your disposal, and with more options means there's also more room for negotiations. All that to be said, if you're looking at the higher price points of say 1.2 to really 2.6, there are less options, which makes sense, but there's also less buyers. But the discrepancy isn't as big because there's not going to be as many homes in those price ranges to choose from. So if you're looking at the higher end price points, you will have options to some degree, but not to the same degree that you would have if you're buying a $2 to $4 to $6 to $800,000 house, because there's just less of them out there in these areas. Next up, we're going to look at is the total number of contracts that we saw across the board for the last 6 months, and what was that median sale price of those. And what we can see here is in the last 6 months, there were 784 contracts that sold in the last 6 months. And that's actually an increase from what we saw last month, because if you've watched my previous videos, you know what I've been saying is we are seeing more homes hit the market, more buyers hit the market, because we're now in from a seasonality standpoint, busier buying cycle and season. And so therefore it makes sense that as we start to take off that October, November, December data from last year, we're starting to add now that March and April data in future May, we are seeing that there's more homes selling because those tend to be busier times on the market for both buyers and sellers. We also saw that the median sold price for those homes was $561,000, which is, I believe, a little bit of step up from last month. And ultimately, it still does show that although sellers are trying to get more for their home, as shown with the $775 median list price, they also understand that to get their home sold, they're probably not going to be as high as they wanted to be, as shown with the $561,000 median sold price when we look at the last 6 months look back. Obviously, there are going to be differences there, but it does show there is some room for negotiation if you are a buyer, and that if you're a seller, you will need to have the ability to make some room to negotiate if you want to sell your house. Gone are the days of, for most sellers, gone are the days of being able to put your home on the market and have multiple buyers coming at your door next day with an offer for your house. So now we are in a time where you have to be more willing to negotiate with a buyer, because again, buyers are struggling with these rates, and for a lot of sellers, you're also a buyer. And so you can probably relate to it to some degree, which has helped with a lot of buyers being able to get concessions, because the sellers a lot of times do understand what buyers are going through. Now, we did also see too, there was a total of 174 listings that failed to sell, and listings that failed to sell for many different reasons. And ultimately, it was a little bit of a bump up from last month, but it's still very common to have when you look at a 6-month look back, because again, things change, people change, homes change, jobs change, and so ultimately sometimes things occur that may either force or may just have a seller decide just not to sell anymore. Sometimes it's part of their own doing, sometimes it's something that was out of their control. But overall, at 174 listings failing to sell, that does not mean that there's anything wrong with the market currently, because that is still relatively in line. We're not seeing any really big bump ups or bump downs from previous months. Where we would like to see, or where we would want to make sure we're keeping an eye on with a potentially red flag, is if you go from say 174 homes to now you're talking 300 homes or 350 homes in the span of a month or two. That's where we start to look at, we start to say, okay, what's going on here? Why is this occurring? What can we do to determine what, if this can be fixed, or if this is something that we're going to see in future months as well. However, in this scenario, with the current data that we have, that's not anything to worry about at this time. Next up, we are going to look at the days on market. And what we're going to see is that the average, or for the active listings that are still on the market, the median days on the market was 34 days on the market. So we're starting to see days on market go down, which is very common, as mentioned previously, due to typical seasonality trends, with us now being in April and May, what's more so considered that late spring, early summertime. As homes, as new homes hit the market, as sellers, school ends and sellers now decide, okay, we're going to list our homes, as buyers now decide, okay, we're going to get into certain school districts, we need to make the move sooner rather than later. You do start to see days on market go down, because buyers and sellers become a little more aggressive and a little bit more time conscious to find the right home or get their home sold before we get to that time of the year where school's starting again, and now you're kind of rushing to get into a house. So days on market going down does not surprise me, and that is very typical for what we typically expect to see this time of the year. Now, when we look at the sold homes last 6 months, we did see the ones that did sell had a typical days on market of 23 days. So the active listings, although they're seeming longer currently, when we look at a 6-month look back, we actually saw that the days on market was a lot less for ones that did sell. That discrepancy of 23 and 34, what that tells us is if a home is priced well and the condition matches the price in these areas, you're going to most likely sell your home quicker than the homes that are still on the market, or a home that may not have those things going for it. And so ultimately, when you see homes in the market for 34 days as the median time frame, a lot of times those homes, they need some sort of price reduction, or they need some sort of trigger to get a buyer more interested in their home to be able to now get theirs under contract as well. And with seasonality trends, we may actually see that go down too moving forward because of the fact that, as mentioned, buyers and sellers become a little more active, a little bit more time conscious this time of year. Now, for the last 30 days, we also saw that the median list price was $551, which is a little bit less than for the last 6 months. Ultimately, that's something that we will want to monitor, but what's more important with this is that the days on market for those dropped dramatically. So in the last 30 days, again, if your house is priced well and it's in a good location and it's a good condition, you're going to sell very quickly, as shown in the 10 days on the market. And so ultimately, what we saw in April was that most likely a lot of sellers were probably more willing to negotiate and get their home sold sooner, as shown 10 days in the market. They may have actually been willing to take a little bit lower price at $581,000 compared to when we look at that 6-month window or look back, and compared to the ones that didn't sell. And so ultimately, it just goes to show that if you are looking to buy on the market currently, if you find the right seller, you may actually be able to get a little more equity in the house when you buy it, because those sellers are very motivated, very interested to get their home sold. Next, we're going to look at is the median list to sales ratio. I like to go over this just because it's a cool exercise. It kind of puts some perspective on the numbers we're really discussing. But for the month of April, the median list to sales ratio was 96.7%. So all that really means is that a seller was getting almost 98% of their asking price. Now, does that mean that they were listing their house super high? No, not necessarily, because as we saw, the median sold price for the last 30 days actually was less than the last 6 months at $551. But what they're doing, them being sellers, is that they're saying, we will take potentially a lower price, but we want to get this thing sold ASAP, hence the 10 days in the market. And therefore, a lot of times they're even willing to come a little bit off of their maybe slightly lower list price to get their home sold, as shown with the 97.6% of list to sales ratio. So overall, it just goes to show that there are deals to be made in this market, and it does go to show that all parties can win despite rates being higher and despite inventory being higher. However, for this area, inventory actually went down last month, or when we look at a 6-month window. So in the previous video we did for March, the absorption rate for the area was 3.4 months of inventory for the last 6 months. We actually saw that go down to 3.2 months of inventory for this area, the Beaches and Southside area, as we look at April's data, and that's actually a good thing for sellers. It is a good thing for buyers too, because overall, if you're buying in an area where the absorption rate's going up constantly, or you're seeing inventory continually increase, it could make you start to kind of question what's going on with the market. And not to say it's a bad thing, but when you do have that absorption rate go up and down some, it does show that there is demand to match some of that supply that we're seeing. And ultimately, it's not to say that it's in a bad market, because if you're under 6 months of inventory for the absorption rate, it's a seller's market still. And so at 3.2 months, it's still a seller's market, but there is still room for you as a buyer to be able to negotiate and get the house you really want without necessarily maybe having to break the bank in certain regards with certain things. Hence, there's ways to potentially get rate buy downs or, closing cost concessions now that you would never have seen a couple years ago. Look at these two tables. You can pause the video if you want to really look through these, but the median sold prices and median days on market, as it really just shows, is that we did see an increase in the median sold price for the Beaches and Southside area over the last couple months. We have also seen days on market go down the last couple months in the area, which is all what you really want to see if you're looking to buy or sell this area. This just goes to show that's a very popular area here in Jacksonville. Then lastly, this table here, not a ton change as far as, if you watch my previous videos, I like to go over these colors over here with this table. But what this table measures, it just measures the absorption rate for each bracket, the price points. And it kind of just goes over all the numbers of the actives, the solds, the pendings, the off-market deals that did not sell for those price points in this area. And ultimately, what it shows us is that it's still very much a seller's market. Anything under 1.4 million. And it also does show us that anything above 1.4 million is actually more of a buyer's market. And so as a buyer, if you're in that higher price point watching this video and you're like, I really want to be at the beaches, well, guess what? There should be some good inventory for you. I can't guarantee the condition will be matching the price, but I can guarantee you'll have plenty of options to look at and maybe choose from, with more to come. If you're under 1.4 million, there still are some options, but you do have a little more competition if you're a buyer. If you're a seller, if you're over 1.4, it just means that you have to be understanding that's going to take a second to get your home sold, but it will sell. It's just not going to be as quick as if it was a lower priced home under 1.4 million. So all of that I like to go through because it really gives you a good feel of what's going on with the market here in the Beaches and Southside area. And because we do this every month, we like to always look over and see any changes that have gone on from month to month. And that actually is going to wrap up our market update video. So if you really like this video, if you got anything out of this video, again, I would love if you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and ring that bell because it definitely helps us build up our channel and be able to allow us to create more content like this to really get back to you, the consumer, as far as what's going on here in Jacksonville, Florida. And as always, you'll see them in the future videos. If you have any questions that can't wait till the next one, like I mentioned, in the description is a link to my calendar. Feel free to schedule time on it or contact me. Have my phone number down there below. I'm not afraid to take a call. Would love to speak with you if you're looking to potentially move or sell your house here in Northeast Florida. And besides that, I will see you guys again on the next one.